So, will the United States get involved in another conflict in the wake of these attacks on Israel? A disturbing trend of pro Palestine marches has arisen on college campuses here in cities across the United States, prompting even Missouri Senator Josh Hawley to claim that we need to probably probe some of these student groups for ties to terror groups. Tahmineh Dehbozorgi has escaped from the mullahs of Iran in 2015. She's currently living in the United States and attending George Washington University Law School. She's a public speaker with the Dissident Project, and she's here to talk a little bit about the conflict of good and evil. Good morning, Tamina. Thank you for joining us today.
Austin, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're grateful to have you here, Tamina. If you wouldn't mind, perhaps just give us your broad overview reaction to the attacks that Hamas carried out in Israel and your reaction to how students have been reacting on campuses.
It's been a very difficult week for all of us because, Hamas is a terrorist organization. You cannot really replace the word freedom fighter with it and then think it's okay to support them. And so it's been really unfortunate to watch that students at the George Washington University held a vigil in Kogan Plaza as they celebrated the atrocities of Hamas against Israelis. And there were other students in law school, such as NYU Law School or Harvard Law School, Berkeley Law School. A lot of student groups came out with statements explicitly saying that the Israelis deserve to be killed. And on the other hand, the school administration not only didn't do anything, but they also refused to put any statements in support of the Jewish people. And, my gut feeling is that these school administrators do not want to get involved because they're scared that that would spread some sort of Islamophobia.
So, okay. So, university administrators purposely not condemning Hamas because they're citing concerns about spreading Islamophobia. So, right. So, what you say is, in other words, these student leaders, these campus administrations, they're sort of backing down to terrorism in a way as a way to sort of support wokeism. Is that correct?
Yeah, and this is really not about Israel versus Palestine. This is really about good versus evil. The attacks on Israel are escalating on every side. We see that Hezbollah is launching attacks from the north, and we are seeing threats from the Iranian government that they might actually get involved directly. And, just pay attention who is actually backing Hamas. It is governments like the Islamic Republic of Iran. They kill women and children in Iran, in their own country, let alone countries abroad. And it's just really weird that we see that college campuses, students, and also school administrators acquiescence to these acts of terror. And they don't pay attention where they're coming from. And they call them freedom fighters, and the fact that they're defending themselves without even paying attention that Hamas is a terrorist organization and they're dedicated to eradicate all sorts of human life to maintain the political authority in the region.
So, Amina, if you wouldn't mind, so for our listeners could have a little bit of a better understanding of who you are and sort of your authority on this subject, could you give us briefly sort of the Reader's Digest version of your flight from Iran?
Yeah, so I lived under the Islamic Republic for 17 years. I grew up there. I moved here in 2015, as you noted. And so I've seen everything about the Islamic Republic. There's nothing peaceful nor moderate about their ideology. And as a dissident, as someone who has experience living under their regime, it's very disturbing to watch that on our college campuses the conversation about radical Islam, about these extremist ideology, has been chilled. There is really no room to discuss the dangers of such ideologies. I'm also a national security law student. I study how these terrorist groups are formed and how they act. And it's that conversation has been totally lost in our academic settings in the name of diversity, inclusiveness, and tolerance. Coming from the Middle East, coming from an Islamic country, watching the Westerners labeling these acts as, oh, this is Islamophobia, we can't talk about it. It's just really ironic to me.
Interesting. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Petersen. We're glad to have you here today. Don't forget to click that like button right now and subscribe to the channel. You don't hear content like this on any other talk show in the morning. Come back and join us every Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time and text the show with your thoughts at 573 319 1586. Again, the text lines are open night or day at 573 319 1586. If you're just tuning into us now live, I'm speaking to Tahmineh Dehbozorgi, trying to get that right as best as I can. There's a little pause on the H there, I believe. She's joining us now as a dissident from Iran, now lives in the United States, goes to George Washington University, and is talking to us about how wokeism on campus enables support for terrorist organizations like Hamas. Talk to us a little bit about the psychology here, right? The fear of spreading Islamophobia is greater than the desire to live or not be beheaded by some of these people, it would seems rather absurd.
Absolutely. And if you're a liberal American, I think you should understand that there is nothing more illiberal than it's some sort of religious extremism. And particularly, Hamas is one of the most illiberal groups known to humanity. I see that a lot of the, people on the far left think that fighting for Palestine is their cause. As I said, this is not really about Palestine versus Israel. I know a lot of Palestinians who support Israel because, they're the victims of Hamas more than any other group. They have been used as human shields against in the wars of Hamas. And, the average age in Gaza is like 18 years old because the life expectancy is too low. A lot of them are forced to act as suicide bombers. A lot of them are recruited at a young age. So Hamas is not really fighting for the cause of Palestinian people. And I think that distinction is really important to be noted.
Tamina, one of the things that you sent me here were your thoughts on the Islamic Republic being the biggest supporter of Hamas and Hezbollah. We have heard from official sources in the State Department, and yesterday, at least the government of Iran officially denied that they were involved in this attack, and they claim that they are not going to be getting involved directly with this conflict with Israel. In other words, Hamas has asked for Iran to step in this conflict, and Iran has declined. At least that's the latest that I've heard within the last 24 hours. Do you believe that Iran was backing this, or that the terrorist attack that Hamas initiated this last week? Do you believe that it was supported by Iran?
There were many reports coming out of Wall Street Journal that there was evidence that Iran has been planning this event with Hamas for months at a time. And even the president of Iran had actually noted that they had supported Hamas. And many, many times, even recently, the supreme leader of Iran had called on Muslim countries to support the Palestinian people in their fight against Zionism. So there is a lot of rhetoric that the Islamic Republic is actually directly involved with this attack, and even recently, we saw that the Biden administration sent $6 billion to the Islamic Republic to free American hostages. That money is now in Qatari banks, but U.S. has stopped sending that money so far because there are evidences that Iran has been involved in funding terrorism. And even the Ibrahim Raisi, the president of Iran, had explicitly said, when this $6 billion gets to us, we get to do whatever we want with it. And many have cited concerns that Iran is going to continue fund terrorism in the region. Remember that the Islamic Republic is very anti-Semitic. They want to eradicate Israel from the map, and they've said it since 40 years ago. There's nothing peaceful and moderate about their ideology. Therefore, we should not believe them when they say we're not going to get involved directly, because they have been involved and they will continue to be involved in the war against Israeli people. Therefore, I think it's important for the United States to really recognize it and not continue appeasing the Islamic Republic with these sorts of backdoor deals, giving them $6 billion, and all sorts of other activities that the Biden administration has continued.
That's been one of my primary complaints when it comes to, as a libertarian with the funding of foreign regimes, is that we fund Israel's enemies something to the tune of 10 or 11 times more than we do fund Israel. Not that I really believe in foreign interventionism when it comes to financial or military affairs at all. But of course, if I had a choice, I would cut off all of aid to Israel's enemies before I would cut it off to Israel, because, of course, they are our allies. However, just from an ideological perspective, I think that the United States sending money over to Israel, even in itself, sort of makes it so that we treat them like a redheaded stepchild. When we're funding Israel, our tax dollars go over there. There are strings attached. And even Bibi Netanyahu said that in a speech to Congress back in 2015. I'd like to ask you, going back to the students on campus, of course, because that's sort of your specialty here. Tamina, is Vivek Ramaswamy, Republican presidential candidates, wrote this last week that he doesn't believe that the students at Harvard who penned this letter, an open letter in support of the Palestinian cause in light of these terrorist attacks, that they should not be blackballed or punished or lose job opportunities, etc. My argument is, and I don't find myself at odds with Vivek very often, but I certainly am on this one. My argument is that these are some of the most privileged people on the planet, that we have allowed people to get away with not the, especially the left, without having to face consequences from of their poor behaviors for far too long, and I think it has enabled more poor behavior, and also that there's a freedom of association, that businesses and corporations shouldn't feel like they have to associate with people that they don't believe shares their values or supports abhorrent or abominable values. I don't think Vivek Ramaswamy would hire someone who says that we should kill all Indian Americans, for example. So I disagree with Vivek Ramaswamy. I think I'm actually working on a piece right now at Human Events about why I think we should punish these students for their speech, not with government, obviously, but with repercussions, showing that actions have consequences. What do you agree with? Where do you come down on the side of that?
Yeah, I agree with you, Austin. I think you're absolutely right about this. Actions have consequences. And again, this is not about government trying to censor them or punish them for what they said, but it is the private entities. I can speak into the law school environment. Mostly, we saw that the NYU student government president lost her job offer from a law firm. And, law firms are very conservative, not politically, but like institutionally very conservative organizations. They really are about business and clients, and they really don't want to get involved in controversies. They also never want to hire people that are controversial in either direction because it's bad for business. And they have all the right to as cut ties with individuals that they think would be bad for their business, and that goes for every corporation, but specifically in law. That's I've seen that happen a lot. On the other hand, I think that uh, a lot of these students really need to realize that their actions have consequences, and also, it's putting these like group statements. I think it's always just a very bad practice because we saw some of them were like, we are part of this group, but we never signed off on it. I mean, I don't know if that's true, or did they come out and walk back what they say just because they saw the repercussions actually happening. But I think as a student, I think it's putting these group statements always bad. Someone is always going to get upset, and I really think student groups should not really be doing this anymore, especially given the fact that this issue is something that divides people on many levels, and it's just not good for the group members. But on the other hand, I saw that Harvard University also lost some of its support, some of its biggest funding from foundations. And again, I just say well deserved, because these academic institutions, these Ivy Leagues, have been really nurturing this DEI environment, and they've been really supporting these students that have in the past said similar things, and now they see the consequences of their own action. The university is losing funding. I saw that the former president of Harvard University came out, and he was really upset about students' reaction and schools' inaction in this situation to come out and support the Israeli people. And I tweeted about it a lot. I said, "Look, it's you supported this environment. You guys nurtured this leftist ideology on campus. You shut down dissent on the other side, and that's what you get." So I'm not surprised, and they should not be surprised either.
Yeah, no, for sure. This is a great conversation. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Petersen. I see our audience has been climbing, so you must be enjoying the content. If so, do us a favor, click that like button and subscribe to the channel. Help us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. Tamina, when I started this segment with you, I played a clip of Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, who was asked about whether or not we were able to afford a second war, supporting another conflict financially in the Middle East, in addition to supporting the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Um, As I consider myself a non-interventionist, although not a pure non-interventionist. I'm not really a purist in pretty much any sense of the term. I take a very heterodox approach to most affairs. And I wonder what your thoughts are on this in regards to the diplomatic, financial, and military situation and the behavior of the United States in this conflict. Do you think the United States should get involved in a financial and military sense in the conflict between Hamas and Israel, or should we support them diplomatically and morally, but allow them to fight it out?
I think that there's a time and place for everything, and we have national security interest in defending Israel. Israel is our biggest ally in the Middle East. Therefore, I think United States has a duty to get involved directly, especially given the fact that the threat against Israel is very credible. Israel is a small country. It's surrounded by enemies on every side, and they're powerful. They're being backed by our enemies. They're being backed by Russia. They're backed by Iran. And I think that's something that, really justifies our involvement to defend Israel, and uh, Israel is in a vulnerable position. And they have done a really great job defending themselves. However, I hope the war does not escalate further. However, if it does, I think there is definitely going to be a situation where the United States involvement is not only advised but necessary, because our national security interests compel us to get involved. And also, I mean, I think if United States is able to get involved and end the war quicker is good, because otherwise we will see a massive human crisis. We see we
When has, but I mean, when has the United States getting involved in a conflict made a war end quicker? It certainly hasn't seemed to speed things up in Russia or Ukraine. But I guess my question here, ultimately has to be, how confident are you in Joe Biden's ability to effectively manage a conflict in the Middle East?
Well, I'm not really confident in Joe Biden's ability in foreign policy in general. However, I believe that our military is still very competent. We have the best military. We have some of the best men and women in uniform.
Are you
And
sure? These days, you're more apt to see a cross-dresser with pink hair in the military these days than someone of utmost competence. I really think you might want to revisit your views of the competency of the American military, especially considering our track record in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, not everything has been roses and lilies, but however, what I'm mostly concerned about is a second genocide against the Jewish people funded by radical Islam. I think that is actually is a very big threat. And uh, I believe that our military is definitely capable of defending Israel and also making sure that we don't see another humanitarian crisis in the region. I think that's even worse to think about.
I think I disagree. I do believe that we should be looking after America first, and with Americans paying record prices at the pump, dealing with an inflationary crisis and the instability of the American economy and political situation, that and dealing with the fact that if we do have a problem of potential terrorist attacks in the United States, they're likely coming across our southern border. And of course, politicians on both sides of the aisle don't seem to be willing to do anything about that. But Tamina, I do want to give you the final word here. This was a great interview. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience or our listeners or plug before we let you go?
Well, I hope that if students are listening to this conversation, I want you to be outspoken on your college campus. Don't be intimidated. Don't be scared. These are very difficult times for everyone. And the last thing we want is not having conversations about these things. And the campus administrators have done a disservice to students across the country by not allowing them to engage in conversations about these topics, because they're scared that it would be intimidating the other side. So my advice to students is to continue speaking out. Uh, and also, if your parents listening to this conversation, I hope you encourage your children on campuses, and also if they're in school, to be outspoken, talk about what they believe in. Nothing is too controversial. But at the same time, remember that words have consequences, And although we have freedom of speech in this country, but not everything is absolutely protected. And I think that, the people on the left are learning that lesson in a hard way, that, sending threats to people because of their nation of origin or religion is not going to end up well. They're not going to have successful careers if that's how they're behaving. And I hope that, we continue talking about these issues, especially issues of radical extremism, of religion extremism, and also, radical Islam. So, as someone who's lived in the Middle East, I can tell you that there is nothing moderate or liberal about their ideology. And I hope that the left stops supporting these beliefs on our college campuses and also on a larger political level.
You've given us a lot to think about this morning, Tamina. You're a credible subject matter expert on this, and we're grateful that you're so generous in getting up early and sharing your time with us. Thank you very much for joining us here on the show. We look forward to hopefully having you back again soon.
Thank you so much, Austin. Have a great morning.
Thank you very much. That was Tamina Dehbozorgi.